of their Mukut Mani, the crown jewels, Swami Sarvapriyananda himself, who is carrying on that fine tradition. And we wish him all success as he shines that knowledge which he has received by the blessings of his masters. It is indeed our honor and privilege that he has consented to participate in the JK Yoga International Festival of Yoga. I will now request Pujya Swamiji to enlighten us with his words of wisdom.
Well, first of all, I must pay my obeisance and offer pranams to revered Swami Mukundananda ji Maharaj. And I don't know to thank him or feel blessed because of his very kind and very generous introduction, which I take as a blessings. I am very grateful to him personally and to his team, his wonderful team at the Ramakrishna Temple in Dallas for organizing this event, this international event, and for giving me this opportunity to be part of it. Let me start with the chant and then we'll take it from there. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste, everybody. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be part of this international workshop on wellness. The subject I'm going to talk about is wellness in spiritual life, spiritual wellness through the 4 yogas. What is spirituality and what can it do for us? Bhagavan Buddha was once asked by one of his monks, Buddhist monks, that, I have this doubt. Long ago you taught us that there is suffering and there's a reason for suffering, which is desire, and there is an end to suffering, which is nirvana, and there is a way out of suffering, which is the Ashtanga Marga, so famously taught by the Buddha. And suffering also you defined old age, disease, death. But now we find we are following your teachings, but we are all getting old. We are getting disease also, and death is coming near, not only for us, but for you also. You're also getting old and sick. And one day perhaps your body also will die. So old age, disease, death, and that means suffering is continuing, even though we are following your teachings. What is your message and how does it work? How does it overcome suffering? So Bhagavan Buddha gave a very nice answer, very, very incisive answer as to what spirituality is. He said, consider a man hit by an arrow, pierced by an arrow. Imagine the shock and the pain and the suffering. And imagine that he is hit by a second arrow immediately. How much more suffering that increases. Now, the first arrow is the suffering that the world throws at us. The things that happens in the world, like old age in the body and disease and social problems, financial problems, relationship problems, health problems, and so on. All of the events which happen in the world and which give us suffering. The second arrow which hits is our reaction to all of this. How do we take all this? And it is that second arrow which really causes the maximum amount of suffering. What happens in the world can be pleasant and unpleasant, but really that is not the cause of suffering. The real cause of suffering is that second arrow, our reaction to the events of the world. How do we react to disease, to old age, to approaching death of the body, to the behavior of others? So this reaction, there lies suffering. So the nature of suffering is like being hit by 2 arrows. One arrow is what the world throws at us. The second arrow is how we react to it. And it is that second arrow, our reaction contains suffering. And then the Buddha says, all that I have taught and all that spirituality can do is remove that suffering which is caused by the second arrow. Pleasant and unpleasant events coming from the world, they will keep coming. They have come for everybody in the world, all living beings, all human beings, including enlightened beings also. So just as you said, there is old age, there is disease and death, even for enlightened persons, whether it is Buddha or Swamiji mentioned Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda. Um, Vivekananda passed very young. He used to say, I will not live to see 40. He passed at the age of 39. So no, he did not see old age, but disease certainly. His body broke down under overwork, but they were able to overcome suffering. There is the famous incident, Sri Ramakrishna is dying of cancer, throat cancer, and very sick and suffering. One of his disciples, Hari, who later became Swami Turiyananda, young man, he comes, he asks, Sir, how are you today? And Sri Ramakrishna says, not well, there is pain here and I cannot eat. Then the tumor is there, And then Swami Turiyananda, Hari, who later became Turiyananda, he says, but sir, I see you are in great bliss. What a strange thing to say to a man dying of cancer, terminal cancer patient. And Sri Ramakrishna acknowledges it. He laughs and he says, oh, the rascal has found me out. In Bengali, oh, shaladhore niyeche. That there is, at a certain level of the body, there is this tumor, there is pain, and then I cannot eat. That is true. He's not acting. But underneath that, deeper than that, he has got something established in something from which perspective there is no suffering. He is fine. But that's the difference between the enlightened person and us. That's the difference between the yogi and the bhogi. That if we are not spiritual, then we are defined by that suffering. We are subject to both the arrows. Whereas the enlightened person, the external things keep happening. Cancer has happened, old age is coming, death is coming. But internally, the effect of that second arrow is not there at all. That real cause of suffering has gone. So this is what spirituality can do. Yoga deals with both arrows. I was thinking about it. Once I went to a hospital. I was asked to give a talk in Arizona, a talk to doctors and staff and all. And I told them about the two arrows. And I said, you in the hospital, you deal with the first arrow, physical illness and all. And the second arrow is the actual suffering, and spirituality can help there. But I was thinking, the knowledge of yoga, it is all encompassing. It helps us in dealing with the first arrow, old age, disease, death. So Hatha Yoga and practices associated with it, and other knowledge systems from ancient India like Ayurveda. I know you have many wonderful talks in this workshop. If you look at it, the talks cover the entire gamut from dealing with the suffering caused by the first arrow and the deeper solutions offered by removing the effect of that second arrow. So there is Ayurveda and many other knowledge systems from ancient India which help us to mitigate the effects of the events, unpleasant events in the world and in our body-mind. However, the deep insight of Indian civilization is no amount of worldly cures is permanent. There is an ancient text called Sankhya Karika. Ishwar Krishna, he wrote it, very ancient text. And in that, the first shloka gives us the argument for spiritual life. What can spiritual life do? Why spiritual life? Why yoga is necessary? There, the author says, Dukkhatrayabhigatat jihasa tad apaghatake heto drishte sapatha na atyanta ekantatyanta bhavat. Afflicted by the threefold sorrows, physical sorrows, natural sorrows, sorrows created by other people and other living beings, all sorts of sorrows and suffering in the world, afflicted by this, we look for solution, how to overcome suffering in this world, how to attain fulfillment. Now, question might be that, well, there are so many material ways, natural ways of overcoming sorrow. If you are sick, there is the hospital. If you are bored, there is television and internet. If you want company, there are friends, and nowadays online chat and all these things are there. It says, no, those things do not offer a deep solution. Why? Because all things that the world offers, like everything in the world, it is ekanta atyanta bhava. There is no guarantee that any of them will work. See, I was just thinking, in this most advanced country, in the most powerful advanced country in the world, 2 years back, I was here in New York, maximum amount of COVID infection, sickness and deaths here in New York, in Manhattan. More than 1,000 people were dying every day. So with all our technology and resources, there's no guarantee that you will be able to tackle the blows that life rains upon us. Ekanta bhava and atyanta bhava. Even if you can tackle the problems, you feel hungry, eat a nice meal, you will feel hungry again. Cure one disease, another disease will come. No matter how much, even Hatha Yoga practices, balanced diet, Ayurvedic diet and whatnot, all of it we follow, then it will be a healthy life. You will not suffer so much. But still, old age, disease and death are final. It will come for everybody. There is no ultimate solution here. Is there any ultimate solution anywhere? Yes, there is. That is the promise of yoga. Not only at the worldly level, but there is a spiritual solution from which perspective we can say honestly that I have overcome suffering, that the greatest of sufferings, they will come from the world. First arrow will come, and yet it cannot shake me. No second arrow. Krishna says to Arjuna that yasmin sthito dukkhena guruna api vichalyate. Settled in which, after that realization, one cannot be shaken by the heaviest of sorrows, means that heaviest of sorrows may come in life, but it will not shake you. First arrow will come, but no effect. So that is the highest idea of human wellness. There is an idea of human wellness which yoga can offer at this worldly level. It can cure a number of diseases. It can prevent stress. It can have a, give us a long lifespan, a healthy life. One doctor was telling me, with modern medical technology, Swami, we can ensure you will live long, but we cannot ensure you will live well. And that's true of modern medicine. But yoga can actually, yoga, Ayurveda and other technologies are there which will ensure you live long and you live well also. But still, all limited. Human lifespan is limited. Is there some deep solution to this problem of death and suffering in life? Yoga offers that. Sri Ramakrishna said this life is full of thorns. Um, the wise person will put on shoes so that he can walk over the thorns without being affected. What is these shoes? This yoga, spiritual realization, are the shoes which we must put on to walk through the pathways of life, which are littered with is full of thorns and full of challenges and suffering. All right. So yoga is what does it. We must put on the shoes of yoga to protect ourselves from the thorns of life. We start with the outermost and go inward. Our activities, actions. All yoga, whether karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga. By the way, these four yogas is like one of Swami Vivekananda's insights, great insights, that a variety of spiritual paths are there. Variety of spiritual paths, especially in India. But all of them can be broadly classified under these four heads. One is karma, karma yoga, all our activities, how to spiritualize them. Then there is Raja Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, how to focus. We have the mind and capacity to focus. Our great power comes from focus. Without focus, no power, no spiritual path will work. But with focus, we can be successful in our worldly life and in spiritual life. So meditation shows us focus. And there are a vast number of meditation techniques. Then there is Bhakti Yoga, the how to focus all our energies and desires, all of it, channel it towards God, into love of God, into worship, surrender, faith, and love of and devotion, bhakti. So Bhakti Yoga. And then finally, we have the capacity for understanding, cognition. So using the power of cognition, of reason, how we can understand the truth about ourselves in this world, that our real nature, what is our real nature. All of these, and there are varieties in each of these paths. And Sanatana Dharma does not reject any one of them. Sanatana Dharma, you will find the great acharyas, whether it's Adi Shankaracharya, or Ramanujacharya, or Madhvacharya, or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all of them, they include all the yogas. Depending on the particular philosophy, the particular paradigm, some may stress one yoga more than the other, but all of them have a place for all the yogas. First, we start outermost. that is Karma Yoga. Our activities, first of all, have to be ethical. We must move from an immoral lifestyle to an ethical, moral lifestyle. See, one way of classifying human beings, I think it's in the Vichar Sagar, 4 categories of human beings. One is called Pamara. Pamara, literally the Sanskrit word, and some in Hindi also, it means uncultured person, instinctive life. I want something, I grab it. A young child might be like that, an animal is like that sometimes, instinctively grabbing something. Um, so these are people who want only pleasure, kama, and maybe also artha, wealth and success and power. However, by hook or crook, as long as the police does not catch me, as long as the IRS tax service does not catch me, somehow or the other I will be rich and I will enjoy life. This kind of um, pravritti, tendency, comes from a pamara nature, instinctive life. What's wrong with that? They are also seeking happiness, but this is short-lived and not sustainable. Very soon life becomes full of suffering. You just have to take a look at the life of an alcoholic or of a drug addict. It is full of suffering. They are doing it for happiness. They started, but now they feel trapped. They find themselves trapped. Rich person entered detox center for getting rid of alcoholism. Now, just think, that person is rich. And alcohol gives him or her pleasure. So why not keep on drinking as much as possible? Because very soon that pleasure turns into pain. It is intolerable, and they realizes I am bound by this. So that Pamara lifestyle is not sustainable, and it does not give happiness. It very soon gives more unhappiness than happiness. So quickly we are forced to the next level, which is Vishayi, Dharmika Vishayi. Vishayi is a person who is interested in the same things, Artha and Kama, but soon realizes I cannot do this without a basis of decency, of moral life, of discipline. So to be wealthy, to enjoy life in a sustainable manner, I need dharma. What is moral and what is immoral, I should distinguish and stick to the moral and try to give up the immoral. So dharmika life is more sustainable. The goal is the same, pleasure and enjoyment, but instead of just artha and kama, this person has gone up to a higher level, dharma artha kama. Dharma, on the basis of that, pursue worldly goals. But still, what is the problem here? We're still pursuing something which is impermanent and cannot be deeply satisfying. Remember the warning given by the great Sankhya master Ishvara Krishna in that book, Sankhya Karika. Atyanta ekanta bhava. There is no permanent happiness in worldly things, and no guarantee of any kind of happiness or solution of problems from worldly solutions. So now this person becomes interested in higher life. It reads about God and devotion to God and meditation and the possibility. Like Narendranath Datta, he becomes Vivekananda. How? He goes around asking, Sir, have you seen God? And he goes, finally finds his answer from Sri Ramakrishna, who says directly to him, yes, I have seen God. As I see you, I've seen God, and you too can. So this promise that there is something higher than worldly life, and that can give us a greater level of wellness. See, the farmer also wants wellness, but sabotages himself or herself by addiction and by immoral life. The dharmika vishay, the worldly person with morals and decent life, majority are like that. They also want wellness, and they find a little better way of getting wellness, but that is impermanent, and finally everything comes to an end and it's not satisfying. Then comes the next third level, the sadhaka, who is a spiritual seeker, who is a yogi. Karma yogi, bhakti yogi, dhyana yogi, jnana yogi is a yogi. What is this person seeking? Is seeking moksha, the highest ideal of wellness presented in Indian civilization. Many names are there: moksha, mukti, nirvana, kaivalya, apavarga. So many names are there, but they all mean transcending this limited worldly sphere and attainment of something eternal, something deeply satisfying, permanently satisfying, and from which perspective even the heaviest of sorrows in life, they will not shake you. Um, it is not running away from life. When Sri Ramakrishna says you put on the shoes and then you walk in life, the thorns of life will not affect you anymore. He gives another example. In villages, jackfruit, if you want to cut and pluck a jackfruit and open it, the villagers know they have to put oil on their hands. Otherwise, there's some stickiness there. It will stick to you and make a big mess. But if you put that oil and then you can open the jackfruit, it will not stick to you. He says it's just like that. Once you attain bhakti to the Lord, to Bhagavan, and then you plunge into the jackfruit of samsara, it will not stick to you. Like water on the lotus leaf, it slides off. This person becomes a sadhaka, seeking moksha, not the sakama dharma, the dharma, pursuing dharma for worldly results, not artha and kama, but moksha. And maybe a sannyasi, maybe in a householder life, but it becomes sadhaka or sadhika, seeking moksha. And by the way, it's not that these yogas are meant only for sannyasis, not at all. Remember, Sri Krishna was a householder and Arjuna was a householder. And after teaching Gita also, both remained householder. But sannyasi-like qualities are necessary for sadhaka, that's all. Sadhaka seeks God realization, enlightenment. And higher than this, there's one more category called Siddha. Siddha is a perfected one who has gone beyond, like Shankaracharya sings, na dharmo, na chartho, na kamo, na moksha, chidananda rupa, shivoham, shivoham. That going beyond this goals of kama, pleasure, artha, wealth and success and power. And then there is the dharma, moral, ethical life. And then the highest one is moksha, spiritual freedom. Having attained it, now no more goal remains. They've already discovered something where is a permanent source of wellness. So one cannot be shaken from there. Yoga is the way to that. It starts with moral, ethical life. One goes from pamara to vishayi, dharmika vishayi. But that's not enough. I am doing work morally, nothing wrong in what I do, but it's still for worldly ends. It becomes spiritual when I go one step higher. That same karma I now do for the welfare of others as a worship of Bhagavan, as a worship of the Lord. Same karma. You may have a family, you're doing a duty to the family, you have a job, you have your responsibilities in community. All of that now becomes yoga. Earlier it was just karma, but now yoga can be attached to it because I am not doing it for my artha and kama goals, for my petty worldly concerns, not alpa. Upanishad says, yad alpam tan martyam. What is small, limited, personal, individual, cut off from others, that is death. Yo vai bhuma tad amritam. Says that which is the vast, that is immortal. Immortality, it leads to moksha. And bhumaiva sukham, that the vast, God, Brahman, Atman, that itself is real joy, real wellness. Yadalpam na alpe sukham asti. In the limited, in the individual, in our worldly concerns, petty, changing worldly concerns, there is no real happiness, no real wellness. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham, that which is the vast, infinite, God, Brahman, that is happiness. Bhumaiva sukham, the vast infinity alone is happiness. Now we convert our activities, all our activities, into the worship of the ever-present Lord. In the temple, you have the Ramakrishna temple in Dallas. When you go there, in the kirtan, in the puja, in the mantra japa, there our activities are directly connected to Sri Bhagavan. But in the house also, when you're driving to the temple or to the office, when you're taking care of your husband, wife, children, in all of that, find your Gopala, find your Bhagavan in all of them, and all the activities, whether driving, cooking, working in the office, cleaning the house, they all become like the seva you would do in a temple. It's a very powerful method. Karma yoga, we often say that is sort of preliminary, and then we go on to the real practice of bhakti or jnana or dhyana. But remember, karma yoga is the one which spiritualizes our whole of our life. How much time do we have for other spiritual practices? Most of our time and energy, especially if you are a busy householder, most of the time and energy is taken up by family, by your career. If we cannot convert those into spiritual practice, then spiritual practice becomes a small endeavor, and the maximum time and energy is taken by the world. That time and energy which is taken by the world, we have to do those activities, but how to convert it into spiritual practice? That was the key insight given by Bhagavan, by Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that when Arjuna became interested in Vedanta, Atma Gyan, in second chapter, he did not want to fight the war, doesn't want to do his duty. And then he heard about the nature of the Atman. He says, it's very good. I will do this. Why fight the war? And Sri Krishna says, in order to become enlightened, you still have to do your karma. The field of battle, Kurukshetra, all of us have a field of battle. We have to convert that into Dharma Kshetra, into a place for practice of higher spirituality, if we want our wellness. Um, then not only the external activities, but what about inside? Our thoughts and emotions, desires. Our desires are pouring outwards in 100 different streams, 1,000 different streams. I want this, I want that, I get it, not satisfied. If I don't get it, frustrated. So these are only two results in life, in worldly life. Either you will get what you want and you will be dissatisfied. Momentary happiness, then dissatisfied. Or we will not get what we want and it will be frustration. Instead of chasing these limited goals whose will leads to frustration or dissatisfaction, we now turn our attention towards all the desires are collected and channeled towards God in whichever form your ideal Ishta Devata. So my love, my desire is for God only. That which goes towards the world, the same energy is called desire, kama. But the same energy is plucked up, purified, and channeled towards Bhagavan. It becomes bhakti, devotion. Uh, the reason why people feel sometimes I don't feel the love for God or my spiritual practices are mechanical. It's because what I really want, the heart is still attached to the world. It's going outwards. And the higher spiritual practice of bhakti, that has no power behind it because the desire is still pointed towards the world, not towards God. So this has to be turned Godwards. The same energy. And it gives real happiness and real wellness. If you fall in love with a human being, it will give you some happiness, but also give you a lot of misery. If you fall in love with God, it will give you only happiness. Does it mean we will not love human beings? Yes, we love human beings. But here is the secret. You love human beings as God, and as our Bhagavan, as our Gopala, Radha Krishna, who dwells in the heart of all living beings. So when I love a human being, could be husband, wife, father, mother, children, community members, anybody, strangers, we are loving Radha Krishna, my Ishta Devata, in whichever form you worship God, in the heart of that person. It may seem like imagination at first, but actually that's a fact. What we say that we are in love with a person, that's actually a delusion. That person, a human person, is a continuously changing entity and therefore bound to produce suffering if you try to love this material, like a love a body or even a personality. Deep devotion to God and seeing God in all beings. Reading the Leela, the stories of, from Bhagavatam, from the lives of the saints, it elevates the mind and gives a pure, deep joy. And from that perspective, one can deal with suffering also. So the mind, internal environment inside the, it's like becoming, the body becomes a temple, and in our minds becomes like the interior of a temple where the deity, the Vigraha, is present as the Ishta Devata in the heart. It becomes a continuous worship, continuous flow of love. But even that, one may have to step back from that once or twice in a day in the deepest silence of meditation. Quieten. External activities, shut it down, sit quietly in meditation, and internal, even the good thoughts, that also one can shut down for a short while and realize yourself. Um, Patanjali says, Yoga chitta vritti nirodha, tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. Yoga is the quietening, stilling of the modifications of the mind. And what happens when you still the modifications of the mind? Bad thoughts are long gone, good thoughts are shut down, and you realize that we are not the mind. Swami Vivekananda gives the example of a lake with pure water, like a Himalayan lake or an alpine lake, and the water is still. It's like glass, clear glass, and you can see straight through to the bottom of the lake. Similarly, when the mind is pure and still, then I, the witness of the mind, I, the consciousness which shines upon the mind, my real nature becomes clear to me. And I stay in that peace. Yoga, crucial, if you want to describe yoga in one word, it is focus, concentration. Swami Vivekananda said, the concentration is the secret of all knowledge. The way, the power, the method of getting all knowledge is concentration of the powers of the mind. And Swami Vivekananda's concentration, powers of concentration was legendary, famous. There's a story of his disciple, Sharat Chandra. Once he went to Belur Mutt, the headquarters of our order established by Swami Vivekananda. In Swami Vivekananda's room, he found this Encyclopedia Britannica, and that old edition, heavy volumes, whole shelf, 10 volumes. And Sharat Chandra said, Swamiji, this is impossible for one human being to read all these big books in one life. And Swami Vivekananda said, what are you saying? I have already finished 9 of them. You can ask me any question from any one of them. And Sharat Chandra actually took out these volumes randomly and picked out from this page and that page, asked questions. Swami Vivekananda answered all those questions, sometimes in the same language, down to the comma and the full stop. And Sharat Chandra was amazed. How is this possible? And Swamiji says, it is possible for everybody. It's just the power of purity and concentration of mind. Purification of the mind done by karma yoga. Concentration of the mind done by Raja Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. I used to think that, is he exaggerating? Only concentration of mind. If you ask a scientist, they will say, no, it's not just concentration of mind. There's scientific method, the research team will be there, and this process is there for discovering scientific truths. But then I read one of the greatest, maybe the greatest scientist of the 20th century, in some ways greater than Einstein also, John von Neumann, who was a Nobel laureate. There's a biography of him, about him, and which says that Neumann was convinced that he could crack any problem, scientific problem, a mathematical problem, by the sheer power of the concentration of his mind. So when I read that, I said, look, here is von Neumann, the leading scientist of the 20th century, saying exactly what Swami Vivekananda said nearly 100 years before that. So power of the mind depends on focus, not just in spiritual life, of course in spiritual life, but for worldly life also. You want to succeed in academics, you want to succeed in your profession, whether it's business or whatever it is, in personal life also. One must focus, one must concentrate in the moment on the job that you are doing, on the person you are with. It becomes a habit. The mind, Swami Vivekananda used to say, remember you have only one mind. So you train it to focus throughout, it will develop the power of focus. So focus, concentration is essential in spiritual life. We often loosely say the power of our mind is infinite. Well, it is infinite, but also not infinite. It's also limited. Our minds have limited cognitive capacity. That's why focus is necessary. The limited, like the sun, rays of the sun scattered everywhere. If you focus it through a magnifying glass, it can actually burn paper. Similarly, the rays of our mind, that is our attention, has to be focused. Attention is limited. Cognitive bandwidth is limited. The scientist, cognitive scientist, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he studied attention and flow and wrote this beautiful book, Flow, where he says the essence of a high quality of life is concentration. What makes our life worth leading is concentrating the limited resources of the mind on some worthwhile object. You can see children becoming concentrated in video games also. But what is wrong with that? See, after some time, if you do that, if we can become concentrated in video game or just browsing the internet, after 1 or 2 hours, you will find you don't feel good. You feel you have gone from a higher level to a lower level. If you don't feel integrated, fulfilled. But if you concentrate on some worthwhile subject, a good book that you are reading, focus on the image of the deity, the Ishtadevata in the heart, then it leads to a higher quality of life, much greater degree of wellness. There is a saying that, I think it was Milton who said that the mind in its own place can create a hell out of heaven and a heaven out of hell. And it's true. If you look around yourself, you see so many people who have extraordinary lives, so much wealth and privilege and talent and opportunity wasted. Maybe drug addict or something, and including I'm going all the way to suicide. All opportunities, privileges there, wasted. Heaven was converted into hell by only one thing, mind. And opposite also we have seen. You see people with great disadvantages, maybe social disadvantage, physical disadvantage, mental disadvantage, pushing ahead and achieving great things, converting what might be a hell into a heaven. Only one factor, mind. So the mind in its own place can convert a hell, can make a hell of heaven and a heaven of hell. The key to that is concentration of the powers of mind. So meditation is very important. Of course, vast range of meditation techniques are there. Then the fourth yoga. What is our true nature? Somebody said very nicely, a sadhu in Uttarakhand said, if you want peace of mind, do selfless action, karma yoga. If you want happiness, immediately, lasting, pure happiness, straight away, just now, fall in love with God, bhakti yoga. If you want power, concentration, then dhyana yoga. If you want truth about yourself and the world, jnana yoga is inquiry. Notice these three yogas, karma, bhakti and jnana, they use three powers or three domains of the human psyche. And there is the cognitive domain, reasoning, which is used by jnana yoga. There is the affective domain, emotions, which is used and harnessed by bhakti yoga. There is the cognitive domain, willpower, action, which is used, harnessed by karma yoga. What about dhyana? What does it do? It gives the power of focus, which has to be connected to all of these three. Without the power of focus, we are powerless. We are unable to do anything. To achieve great things in secular life, spiritual life, power of focus is necessary. Now I come to Jnana Yoga, where we are using the cognitive capacity to reason and inquire and understand. There we start with ourselves. Often I've seen these days, it is difficult to start with bhakti for many young people. I cannot believe, because bhakti requires some faith. In the very beginning, if you are skeptical, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in all that, then as sometimes people, sometimes it's the fault of the parents also, they impose, they feel something is good and immediately impose it on the children. A much better way is to practice it yourself and show the benefits by demonstration than imposing on the children. And children rebel, that's the very nature of the children. If your parents are telling me, then I won't do it. I remember myself how my parents were devoted. They're very close to the Ramakrishna ashram. They would go there regularly. They took me sometimes. But I remember one interesting thing is that there were so many books in the house, but they never really asked me to go. They were interested, and so they went. Once in a while they took me, but they did not ask me, go to the ashram or do puja or read these books. It was all available around me and no pressure. So I took to it myself. I started reading Swami Vivekananda's books and so on. So, and I used to go to the ashram and sit down there in the temple, in the shrine. So this, I think, is a good lesson to learn for parents. Give all the opportunities, introduce the children, and after that, be in the background and demonstrate your own interest and the gain that you're getting in life from all of this. So I have seen people that they come to Jnana Yoga. Advaita Vedanta attracts many young people because this is the basis of reason and experience. And very interestingly, I've seen coming once through Advaita Vedanta and getting some confidence in the spiritual path, they become bhaktas also. They take to Bhakti Yoga and then gain devotion to the Lord, and Karma Yoga, and they take to meditation also. So this path of inquiry, it starts with ourselves. Why ourselves? You start with God, question immediately will come up, does God exist? I don't believe in God. Nobody can say, do I exist? Nobody can say, I don't believe in myself. Nobody asks anybody else, do you think I exist? Can you prove that I exist? So you can't do that. And so it's good to start with oneself. Who am I? What am I? We don't never inquire this. We just take this to be ourselves. We experience a body, a limited personality, a mind, and we say, I am this. I never inquire. What is there to inquire about, I feel? But Jnana Yoga says if you inquire, we will very soon see we cannot literally be this body. Body with its disease and physical problems and old age and an eventual death. We are not it. And Jnana Yoga will show us, not as a matter of faith, it will show us that we are actually not the body. We're not even the mind. What a great freedom it is to know that here is the body, here is the mind, but I am not the body mind. And when we discover, like Shankaracharya sings, Mano buddhyahankara chittani naham chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. I am of the nature of pure consciousness. As pure consciousness, I am one with Shiva. So that discovery we make, and from there comes a sense of oneness. Swami Vivekananda said, oneness is the only true religion. So all religions tend, all religious practices, yogas, they tend towards oneness. Swami Vivekananda gave some very nice test of truth. If it strengthens you, it is truth. Take it as nectar. If it weakens you, it's not truth. You shun it as poison. If it unifies, makes for oneness, it is truth. If it fractures and divides, then it is not truth. If it leads to selflessness, it is likely to be the truth. If it makes one more selfish, it's not the truth. So tests like this, strength, truth, weakness, not truth, unity, oneness, truth, division, not truth, selflessness, truth, selfishness, not truth. So nice ways of checking that the practice I am following, the philosophy I am following, my life itself, is it based on truth or not? We discover when we say Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, our nature is one, the entire universe is one with me. It is not that there is something separate, other people, God, world is separate. No, from that ultimate perspective, it is one reality, and that gives deep and lasting peace. So these are the ways of this wellness. What spiritual life can do is to remove suffering at the deepest level. Yoga can work at both levels. At the physical level, mental level, it can help. But at the deepest, most spiritual level, it can give us access to the lasting wellness and overcoming suffering completely. Atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa. Complete cessation of sorrow and um, the attainment of deep, lasting peace, joy, wellness. I think I have sort of taken the time which was allotted to me. Should we move into the question answer? Let me do a peace chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Well, Swamiji, that was so delightful. We definitely needed a monk to take us to the root of yoga and remind us of the cessation of all suffering as the deepest meaning of yoga. You have made this philosophy your very life and soul, and to hear from the mouth of someone who speaks from the very heart the philosophy that they live and they breathe and they think of is definitely so impactful. I am absolutely sure that all our viewers and listeners today would have been extremely illumined, benefited by your discourse. You have taken us on a tour of the 4 yogas that Swami Vivekananda presented and reminded people about. I am sure there will be a lot of questions, and with your permission, we will move on to the Q&A segment.
Thank you very much, and pranams once again. It's wonderful to see you. I've seen your talks online. It's wonderful to meet you, even if only virtually. But it's a blessing to see you.
Well, Swamiji, from one monk to the other, there's a kind of brotherhood that is on a frequency of its own. The pleasure is mutual. We will have Shreya ask the questions.
Okay. Pranam Swamiji, what a beautiful lecture. And we have some questions I would like to start before we go into the philosophy and the knowledge. Out of our own curiosity, I would like to ask you that you have dedicated your life in service of humankind. So would like to know a little bit more about yourself, what inspired you, what was the what was the moment that made you take this path, and who is your role model? If you could share that with us, and then we will go into the spirituality and devotion questions.
As I said, I grew up in a devout household. My parents were devotees, Sri Ramakrishna, close to the ashram. There were books of Swami Vivekananda in the house. I read the great French philosopher and scientist, Pascal. He said once, leave good books lying around in the house and the child will take care of his own education. So somehow like that it happened. I read Vivekananda's books and I felt if this is true, that God exists and one can realize God, then this is the life that one should aspire for. So I decided that I would become, I would be seeker of God. I would seek God in my life. That would be my life's goal. Becoming a monk, I understood a little more when I grew up what it means. And so I decided to become a monk. Um, yes. Role model, I would say Swami Vivekananda. Who else?
Thank you, Swamiji. So my next question is that in Bhakti traditions, God is said to have form and understood to have love and compassion. Advaita philosophy says there is no duality and Paramatma is formless. So are they referring to different entities? What is the relationship of God of Advaita with the God of Bhakti traditions? If you could kindly explain that, please.
It is the same. Uh, Remember, in the Bhakti traditions, Vedanta, let us say, Vedanta is based on the Upanishads. Basically, Vedanta means the Upanishad. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam and all other associated texts like Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras. Now, the great Vedanta Acharyas, the masters who wrote commentaries on Vedanta, on the Upanishads, Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita, Adi Shankaracharya, his commentaries form the basis of the Advaita Vedanta system, which you just referred to, which is our core philosophy. But then there was Sri Ramanujacharya, who wrote commentaries on the same texts, which becomes the foundation for Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. Madhvacharya, whose commentaries become the foundation for Dvaita Vedanta. And like that, there are systems like Nimbarka Acharya's Dvaitadvaita Vedanta, our Vallabhacharyas, Shuddhadvaita Vedanta. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's school associated with him is Achintya Bheda Bhed and so on. Now, one distinction between these schools is Advaita alone gives primacy to Jnana. All the other schools, they also have Jnana, Dhyana, Karma, but they give primacy to Bhakti. And that comes because they are all internally very consistent. The way they understand and interpret Vedanta, out of that, the solution, the path comes out of that. So if you follow the philosophy of Vishishtadvaita, then Bhakti becomes primary. Notice one thing about these acharyas, they include all the yogas, but they put an hierarchy. So for Shankaracharya, Karma Yoga is foundational, gives purity of mind. Upasana, which includes meditation and Bhakti, gives concentration of mind, ekagrata. With the pure and concentrated mind, one comes to Jnana Vichara, inquiry, Jnana Yoga. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana of the Upanishadic text, which gives self-knowledge that Aham Brahmasmi. So for Shankaracharya, Jnana Yoga is primary, next is Upasana, next is Karma. Sri Ramanujacharya reverses it. Karma Yoga is foundational again, but then through Jnana one realizes, I am a spark of consciousness, I am a spark of the divine. And the divine, Narayana, is the whole, Vishnu or Narayana is the whole, I am a part of that. So as a part, my relationship to the whole must be one of bhakti. So according to Ramanujacharya, bhakti becomes the primary. path, the ultimate path which will lead you to moksha. So it depends on the paradigm, how you have interpreted these texts. Now, form and formless. In the bhakti traditions also, form and formless are accepted. Um, the Achintya Bheda with the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they say that the Sri Krishna has form and a formless aspect. What is the formless aspect? They call it Tanubha. The radiance of Sri Krishna's body is what those Advaitins they are calling the formless Brahman. It is just the radiance of the form of Sri Krishna. If you go deeper, you will find a personal form, the form of Lord Krishna. So formless and with form are accepted by all traditions. In Hindu traditions, if you find if you look at the mantras associated with each deity, whether it is Krishna or Durga or Shiva, you will find they are always referred to as sometimes Sakara, sometimes Nirakara. So with form, without form, accepted everywhere. The primacy is given to without form in Advaita Vedanta. The primary focus is with form in dualistic or bhakti schools. But you are both referring to the same reality. Sri Ramakrishna put it this way: that which has form is also formless. He said, just like water in the ocean freezes in places into particular forms, icebergs. So they have different forms, and then again melts back into the formless water. Similarly, because of the intense devotion of the devotee, the formless Brahman alone appears. That itself appears as Saguna Brahman, as Ishvara, as Bhagavan. And if you analyze it, it again melts back into the formless. Form and formless are exactly the same reality. Whether it is iceberg or it melts into water, it's the same water. Um, but depending upon your philosophical structure which you follow, your attitude to the four yogas will be different. I don't know if that covers your question.
It does. Thank you so much for explaining that beautifully. I'm going to move on to the next question that many of us are caught up in our day-to-day life, whether it's progressing in career, whether you are a student or if you have a business or whatever. And often we lose the sense of who we are. You did touch upon the point of who am I a little bit, but can you shed light on what is the purpose of life, who am I, and how to find it? You have written books on that as well, so would like to learn a little bit more about it from you.
Yes. Our real nature is the Atman, Brahman, call it God. God is the real nature of everything in this universe, including ourselves. And the goal of human life is God realization. Again, in Swami Vivekananda's very powerful words, the goal of human life is to manifest the divinity within. Do it by knowledge, that is Jnana Yoga. Do it by psychic control, that is Raja Yoga, Dhyana. Do it by love, that is Bhakti Yoga. Or by service, which is Karma Yoga. By one or more or all of these, and be free. That is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches, they are secondary details. So the goal is God realization. But what do you mean by God realization? It's the manifestation of the divinity within us. So it should be manifest in our hearts, in our feelings, and in our day-to-day life. It should help us to overcome suffering and attain peace and joy. Now, one powerful method to keep in mind is the doctrine of karma yoga. As you said, people become very busy in life. There's a lot of demand on time and energy. So a powerful method is that which we are doing in life, continue to do that. Sri Krishna taught exactly the same thing to Arjuna, that you continue to do what you are doing. Don't give up your job. Don't give up your family. Don't go and sit in a forest. What you are doing, that is the perfect place for you to become spiritual. But you have to consciously, deliberately spiritualize that. Keep a background practice. For example, japa. If you have got Ishta mantra, japa is a powerful background practice. It's like the tanpura at the background of a classical music performance. It will be there. At any time you can start mentally doing the japa. Now, the work that you are doing in the office, the work that you're doing at home, all the people around you, connected to God. For example, my Krishna, my beloved Lord is present in the hearts of these people, in husband, wife, in children, everywhere. And my work is, whatever I'm doing is my worship of the Lord, whether at home, on community, or in the office. then what happens is that which was distracting us, taking us away from spiritual life, that will become a field of spiritual practice itself. Of course, it's not as easy as I've said, because we'll keep forgetting. At first, it will seem artificial. It will seem like an effort that I'm trying to imagine something. But if you keep at it, then it's a very powerful practice. Then one of our Swamis, Swami Ashokananda, who was the head of the Vedanta Society of Northern California in the 1950s and 60s, he said, um, where will I look for God? Foolish question. Where will you not find God? God is present in 1,000 forms all around you. If you have that practice of locating God in, it's fading out a little bit. I think some camera focus. Yes. So the practice of karma yoga will answer that question. How do I keep my mind on God? How do I not forget? So I have to connect my daily activities with God.
Very nice practical tips, Swamiji, on we can apply it anywhere. So that leads to my next question, that while we are doing karmas, because most of us are doing something, whether it's a house or work, or so how can we keep our karmas nishkam?
Yes. Practice this. When we go to the temple, you're going to the Radhakrishna temple. Now, a normal way of entering the temple is that we go in there. I'm a father or mother with children, that's big on my mind, or I have a job, or I have health problems, or I have some relationship issues, whatever, that's clouding my mind. And I go in there with that cloud around me. Try to go in by dropping all these things outside. One sadhu put it nicely, before going to the temple, you take off your footwear outside. Similarly, leave that role of father, mother, company executive or doctor, whatever, or I'm a sick person with some disease or something like that. All those complaints, sorrows, problems, they're there, but leave it outside, like the footwear. Just go inside in the presence of the Lord, that I am your devotee. I am here because I love you, because I adore you, and you are my all in all. You come in there, you will see that it's a very powerful effect. It that converts sakama bhakti into nishkama bhakti. That converts conventional religion into spirituality. That's a powerful practice. Try dropping it off. Why we are unable to do that? We think by satisfying our worldly desires we'll be happy, that we will achieve wellness. No, we don't. What is the proof? Look at our own lives. Have we achieved? If one could achieve wellness, but lasting happiness with the help of money, with the help of relationships, with the help of power and politics, we would all be happy, or many people would be happy in life, and others would be trying to get that. But nobody is. After getting it also, as I said, it is disappointing. It is not satisfying. Getting whatever you want, and you don't get what you want, it is frustrating. So we realize all these endeavors, it will be there, life will be there, but they are not going to give me wellness. They are not going to give me deep, lasting happiness. The Lord alone, whether it's bhakti, jnana, dhyana, seva, that will give me happiness. It does. One little bit of genuine feeling for God, you see what a burst of happiness it gives. Little bit of seva done to others. Many things in life we do, we may regret later. But one thing we will never regret is the least thing done for another. If we do something for someone else without any expectations, that is a permanent source, small source, permanent source of comfort in our lives. At least I did that in my life. Now imagine doing that continuously. How much peace one will get. So moving from sakama, with desire, to nishkama. Nishkama does not mean you will become like a stone. No, now there is desire, much more desire. But desire is for God, not for the world. Sri Ramakrishna said that somebody asked, so desire, that means desire is still there. By bhakti you are loving, you want God. So you want something. You have not given up desire. Sri Ramakrishna said, desire for God should not be counted among desires, because it destroys all worldly desires. He gave a nice example that all sweets cause acidity. Bengalis famously suffer from acidity. But michri, sugar candy, if you put it in water and you take that sugar candy juice, it will destroy, it acts as an antacid. That's also sweet, but it destroys acidity caused by other sweets. Similarly, love of God, the seeking God, spiritual life is a desire, but it will destroy all other desires which tie us in the world, our basic understanding that desire gives me happiness. I want something, I will get it, I will get happiness. Only a burst of happiness is there. It's gone again. All the desires that we have fulfilled till now, they've given us little bits of happiness here and there and then gone. But they bring a lot of other trouble. One sadhu who was there in Haridwar, Ram Sukhdas, he was a great expert on the Bhagavad Gita. So his beautiful book is there, Gita, this Sadhak Sanjeevani, very extensive commentary on Bhagavad Gita. There he says that whoever uses objects of the world, vastu, activities in the world, kriya, and people of the world, vastu, vyakti, kriya, whoever uses them to satisfy one's own desires is asking for trouble, is writing a prescription for dukkha. It will, that little joy which we get from using objects and activities and people to satisfy our desires will surely bring a train of sorrows behind them. But whoever uses our relationships with people, with our objects and activities to serve the Lord, to serve all beings in seva, it will give, the activity itself will give happiness and the result also will be happiness. So in this way, these are arguments for moving. We can happily move from sakama to nishkama and there will be no loss of happiness. There will be more happiness and sustained happiness, and there will be a decline in suffering.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. Loving your answers and explanation, the way you are taking this conversation, and that's you mentioned something about seva. Whatever we do, do it for Krishna, and in spirituality, for the spiritual seekers, there are a lot of benefits if importance is given to seva. So would like to ask you, why is seva important and how does that help spiritual seekers to progress on the path?
A private spirituality is no spirituality. I am going to be spiritual, I am going to be enlightened, I am going to be peaceful. What about others? I don't care. That is not very spiritual. Why? Very soon we will realize it's not possible. Others are there. The world is there. Our whole experience of world is subject-object, I and the other. So I have to divinize my experience of the world. And one powerful way of doing it is seva. Swami Vivekananda gave a motto, a slogan for our Ramakrishna order. Atmano mokshartham jagat hitaya cha. For your own liberation, for your own mukti, your moksha, nirvana, and for the welfare of the world, jagat hita. And not one or the other. Only welfare of the world, it becomes social service. It's not spirituality. Only my own liberation becomes selfish, and it will not work also. So this and is important. You cannot leave out. So what is your relationship to the world? Normally our relationship to the world is, what can I get out of everybody? What kind of pleasure, happiness, advantage can I get from people? Now that is worldliness, and that leads to unhappiness actually. If I reverse that, what can I give to people? What can I do for people? It becomes seva. So bhoga becomes yoga. Then seva is that transforms bhoga into yoga. Normally when I decide I don't want anything from anybody, I want God realization, then my reaction is to others is to avoid. I don't want anything. So I don't want to be involved with you. But that avoiding is also, see, if oneness is the only true religion, as Vivekananda said, if you're cutting out others, there's something wrong. Somewhere we're missing out some deep truth. Notice the central teaching thousands of years ago given by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. If you want to summarize the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. Keep your mind on me and fight the battle of life. Look, and that and is there. He could have just said, do your duty, fight. No, he said, no, first thing is keep your mind on me, on Bhagavan. That much he could have said, just keep your mind on me. He added, and you must also do despite the battle of life, because these two are not separate. Bhagavan and this life are not separate. It is one reality. In Bible, Jesus Christ was asked by somebody, the Jews have many commandments. So his audience was Jewish. So they asked, which is the most important commandment? And Jesus Christ said to them that love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy mind, all thy might. So love God with all your heart and all your might. So they must have thought, so that's the most important commandment. Then Jesus said, and love your neighbor, love thy neighbor, those who are around you. See, same and. He did not just say, love everybody. That's a very new agey kind of humanistic message. No, he said, first of all, love God and love all humanity. So are there two things? No, actually it is one reality. And then Vivekananda, Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya cha. So seva is important because it makes for oneness. Swami Ranganathanandi, who was the 13th president of our order, he put it very simply. What is spirituality? He said, when I close my eyes, I find peace within. When I open my eyes, my attitude is, what can I do for you? Seva. Inside, God, peace within, peace, joy, fulfillment. Outside, service to the world. And this is spirituality. Normally, the opposite of this worldliness is, when I close my eyes, oh, so much disturbance. When I open my eyes, not what can I do for you? What can I get from you? This leads to unhappiness. It does not lead to wellness. Opposite, peace within and seva outside leads to wellness.
So profound. Truly appreciate you giving all this explanation and combining with the essence of scriptures and saints, what they have said on the topic with all the examples. I'm going to move on to the next question. Surrender for a devotee is paramount. Can you clarify what does surrender mean and how to implement that in our day-to-day life?
Surrender means just the opposite. Struggle hard. Then only real surrender will come. Sri Ramakrishna gave the story of a bird which sat on the mast of a ship. In those days, sailing ship. And the bird did not know the ship sailed into the ocean. It got panicked, then it flew to the east looking for land, could not find anything, got tired and came back, sat on the mast of the ship, again flew to the west and the south and the north, everywhere, could not find land, only water and water. Finally came back and sat on the mast of the ship and waited. The ship itself took it to land. After some time, the ship reached land and the bird was safe. Similarly, like that bird, we have to seek first. And then we realize by our own effort, it is not achievable. Then rely on God. God will take us to the goal. But that first seeking is necessary. Otherwise, there will not be genuine surrender. One monk said to Swami Turiyananda, who I mentioned earlier, the young disciple who told Sri Ramakrishna, you are in great bliss. In his old age, Swami Turiyananda, one young monk told Swami Turiyananda, Maharaj, I have understood the meaning of that story. I will not fly anywhere. I will sit on the mast of the ship. I am surrendering. Swami Turiyananda said, when did you fly? You have not even tried anything yet. You must try. All spiritual practices, try meditation, japa, puja, kirtan, all and seva. And that must go on continuously. Internally then surrender will come. If I don't do spiritual practices, japa, puja, kirtan, seva, scriptural study, sadhu sangha, if I don't do all that and say I'm just surrendered everything to God, it will be just lip service. What will happen is my life will be engaged with worldly things again. And that surrender is not genuine surrender. But it is true, the deepest truth is surrender, prapatti. Even the great Advaitin, I heard recently, Ramana Maharshi was noted for radical Advaita Vedanta. Who am I? Just that much. But at one point, it seems, somebody told me, he has said clearly, there are these two paths. One is the path of inquiry, who am I? Another is the path of surrender. So he's saying this. Surrender is a very profound path. In Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, the highest spiritual practice is prapatti, is surrender. One of our great Swamis, a teacher, he gave an Advaitic idea of surrender, which I liked very much. What is prapatti from Advaita Vedanta perspective? When the ornament realizes it is gold, when the pot realizes it is clay, wave realizes it is ocean, that realization itself is surrender. So that oneness again is surrender.
Thank you so much. I just want to check time 10 is 12:16 Central Time. I do have some more questions, but
You
I
can
want to
take
be
one or two
respect.
questions and then conclude.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we may know many spiritual principles in theory, but we are not able to implement them. How can we bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge?
There are a number of practical things we can do. This theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge gap is there. It's glad that we should be glad we are getting the theoretical knowledge, that we are listening to the talks, we are studying. That is good. Some practical ways of implementing this, this theoretical knowledge would be routine, very practical way. Have some routine, time for some puja, some meditation, some devotional singing, reading the lives of saints. Then the second thing would be, so routine, daily routine, as much as possible. Don't make it too unrealistic, but something that we can stick to for many years to come. Second thing is sadhu sangha, the company of sadhus and devotees. So when you see other people who are trying in spiritual life, it's a good support and a good inspiration and good company. The sattvic company of devotees is very good. Um, Prayer to the Lord. This is one sure short solution. That, oh Lord, I've heard these things, but I'm unable to do anything in my life. So you are my only refuge. Truly, seriously tell the Lord that I am unable to practice. Please do something. So the Lord will make arrangements in such a way your life will change, and from inside real inspiration will come, and then we'll start doing it. Even the actual practice of spiritual disciplines, as simple like doing japa, going to the temple, getting interest in spiritual life, all of this is also the grace of God. If I say grace of God, oh, then I won't do it, I'll wait for the grace of God. Well, at least one must ask for the grace of God. If I don't ask, I will never receive it. I must show that I want it. So, yeah, so these are some of the practical ways of implementing our knowledge.
Thank you, Swamiji. My next question is, there are many challenges our youth face. What do you think is the most predominant one, and what can they as an individual and we as society do?
One thing I just want to say is, one powerful way of becoming practically spiritual is sankalpa, that I am a spiritual seeker. I've heard all these things. So the Buddhists, for example, in Ashtanga Marga of the Buddha, the first thing is Samyak Drishti. Samyak Drishti is get the right philosophy. So now we are getting the right philosophy. Yes, God exists. Highest wellness is achievable by Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. God is there. God can be realized. That is the purpose of human life. If I do that, I will get true wellness. All that I've got now. This is Samyak Drishti. I'm getting proper philosophy perspective, worldview. But the second step in Ashtanga Yoga, the second limb of the Ashtanga Marga of the Buddha is Samyak Sankalpa. After listening to all this and studying all this, one must make up one's mind, all right, I am now a spiritual seeker. That is very important. Most of us, we are, but we have to deliberately tell ourselves, who am I? I am a spiritual seeker. I am a bhakta. I am a jnana yogi, raja yogi. I am a bhakta. I'm a devotee of Sri Krishna. That is my real identity. I need not tell anybody else. Internally in my heart, I should know. My devotion, my interest in spirituality is not part-time, is not superficial, is not just curiosity. That is my central purpose of life. Just like the Buddha went out to seek enlightenment, just like Vivekananda went out seeking, have you seen God? In the same way, we must all be like that. We can be. That is the purpose of human life. I'm a human being. Why should I not be? I like that Mahatma Gandhi, he writes, when people ask, who am I? People think that I am a freedom fighter. Some people think I am a social reformer. Some people think that I'm a politician. If you ask me, Mahatma Gandhi writes, if you ask me, who are you? I will say, I am a simple man in search of God. Imagine, such a busy person. Such a central figure in India's history. His own idea about himself is, I am seeking God. That is my identity. We must all make up our mind. It is a great blessing to have that sankalpa that I've got all the philosophy, I'm convinced, I'm going to walk on this path. This is my identity. Who are you? I'm a seeker. I'm a spiritual seeker. I'm a bhakta. Now, the crisis facing our youth today, one is, of course, deep crisis of meaning of life. What is the point of purpose? There's so much privilege here, so much opportunities here. Of course, so much competition and so much confusion also. So it's actually in many ways a tough life for young people. One specific problem I would say is that the distraction caused by the modern digital age. So everybody is distracted by all these devices. Now we cannot complain. We are right now on the virtual medium on StreamYard and we are holding this event. So we cannot complain about technology. Whole world is driven by digital technologies. Very good. But also we must be the master of the technology. Technology is a great servant, but a terrible master. And unfortunately, when we introduce children to this, they sort of become addicted to it. It is designed in such a way, the internet, for example, it is addicting to the mind. The mind feels very engaged and relaxed, when browsing the internet and so on. And that is a waste of time. It is has a disintegrating effect on the character and ultimately leads to unhappiness. If you see a young person spending hours and hours on the internet, so after all that, are you happy? Have you spent time has passed? And you cannot give it up also. Addicted. People are addicted to digital devices, social media. But at the end of it, are you happy? No, very unhappy, very disturbed. Some are committing suicide. So how to manage this distraction caused by social media and the digital technologies? This is one big challenge. Um, so spiritual path, bhakti, seva, meditation, focus, just the opposite of distraction. And jnana. These are deep solutions to the problems of the modern digital age.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. I really loved the point that you said, make a sankalp after receiving all this knowledge, make a sankalp that with that firm sankalp that I'm a spiritual seeker, and that energy to put behind that to reach there automatically then starts coming. And also appreciated how you combined and touched on so many topics today, the seva, the nishkam karma, four yokes, and surrender. It has been truly a joy and very great session. I'm feeling so grateful and honored to have this opportunity to speak to you and have you on our platform today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for organizing this. It's a delight to be with all of you today, and pranams to revered Swami Mukundanji Maharaj. Thank you.
And I would also like to, on behalf of all our devotees, we would like to invite you to Radhakrishna Temple here in Dallas. Whenever possible, please
Certainly,
bless us, and we would love to have you here
certainly,
at our
certainly,
temple.
certainly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Our gratitude and pranam to you.